All right, welcome to another episode of NDI November. Today we have the Thunder from Down Under, Dan himself from BirdDog, telling us about all the great stuff that's come out. I'm very excited because over the last week or two, a bunch of new products have hit our warehouse. I know Dan wants to get into those, but we want to start with a little bit of I'm going to call it the long history of BirdDog with NDI, because you guys were the first people we knew who were jumping on the NDI bandwagon. In fact, I remember you and I were at a VizRT cocktail hour. Didn't know, I knew you guys as the guys who were the Australian distributors, and you were looking for us to show us this new converter you had. And you
That's
were the
it.
first people to really embrace hardware as a way to do NDI rather than software. And it's amazing how things always seem to come full circle, right? So
It
let's
is,
talk
yeah.
about your history with NDI and with BirdDog, and then we'll jump into some of the camera lineup and some of the new products.
Awesome. Well, thanks very much, Gary, and it's awesome to be here. I'm really, really excited. And it's kind of funny to think we're talking about the long history of NDI because it feels like it's just sort of gone like that. We've been through a lot of things in the
Yep.
last, I think we're 9 and 10 years now. But for us, NDI was like this moment that we saw this is when things are going to change. Before that, we obviously had a bunch of different things that people were using computers for. We had SDI that was getting video around, and we had a pretty good workflow. But as soon as NDI hit, it's like, this is how video changes forever. So we really jumped on that right at the start with our converter, the BirdDog Studio. I still love that product. I spent a lot of time dreaming about how that thing could come to life, and it really has done such a good job. But since then, really, NDI has done an amazing job of getting into so many places and workflows and solutions that we just couldn't even dream of right at the start. I remember when we were talking at that cocktail party, it's like, this is pretty cool. Imagine what it's going to do for live production. But now we see it in everything from live production to meetings and corporate events through to education to medical. It's just sort of bled out through a whole bunch of different workflows. And it's just so cool to see. And what we've been doing along the way is just working out what are the best ways that we can use this cool technology with NDI in hardware, which is absolutely what we started with. And I think that was a game changer. But also looking at this from a solutions point of view, like how do you actually get things to work better for people, not just replacing one box with another?
Now I'm going to ask the guys to go to the full shot picture with you, because when you see that full picture, there's a couple of monster PTZs on each side of you. We're going to get into the show, but I know every time we put this up, everyone's eyes being caught to the far left and the far right. So just introduce your two new buddies.
All right, so these guys are my new favorite pals. This is the XL on this side, which is probably a pretty good name for it. It's XL in every way, and we'll talk about that a bit later on. But this one might be my new favorite. This is our O4. This is an outdoor PTZ camera that just has all of the fruit in it. It's got every spec that you could possibly want, plus one. It's fantastic. So I'm really excited that these guys are out. We've been working on these for a couple of years now, and to see these come out and be available is just really exciting.
We're super excited. We spent some time with both of them at the NAB New York show, a couple of weeks ago. It was great seeing you guys there. So I want to dig into something that you guys were full NDI when it all started. And you kind of pivoted to NDI HX, and I understand why, because the HX with latency caught up so much. But I still think there's a place for full NDI, especially after my shows with Dr. NDI, with Miguel from NDI. So I want to hear your thoughts on NDI versus NDI HX and whether you see it coming full circle like I do.
Absolutely. So for us, we've always been about finding a way to make a better production. So when NDI first came out, it was always full NDI. There was just one version of NDI, and that really fit the bill. And we spent a lot of time building our hardware to be the highest quality and the lowest latency and the best you could possibly get down a network pipe. And that served us really well and served NDI and the industry really well. Then along came NDI HX. We didn't actually do much with NDI HX at the time because it filled a different niche, which we weren't really sort of wanting to attack at that point. Where it got interesting though is HX3 or HX version 3. And that's where there was a lot of work done by the NDI team to really make it so that it could have low latency and high quality, which are the two tenets that we really wanted. But it also opened up the ability to have smaller, cooler devices as well. So that's when we jumped on it. We sprinkled a bit of our BirdDog magic on it to make it the fastest we possibly could. And we got to the point where actually we couldn't really believe it, but we got NDI HX3 in BirdDog devices to be as fast and as high quality as the high bandwidth NDI. That's really cool for source devices, and especially when you've got workflows where you need to have small devices or something that's not quite so big, where you're going to have a big camera setup. So that's when we went with our X series of cameras. We're talking about 18 months ago now.
Yeah.
And those X series cameras have done really well for us in terms of
Yes, they have.
bridging that gap between high quality and really flexible workflows. That doesn't mean that NDI full is going anywhere. And actually, that wide shot you had with my two new buddies, these guys, the XL and the O4, both support NDI HX3 and simultaneously high bandwidth NDI as well. So
Cool.
for me, this was a really deliberate move. Is NDI HX is great for cameras in general when you've got a lot of cameras working on a regular network, and it gives you really high picture quality. When you're wanting to scale a production, though, high bandwidth NDI really comes into its own. It can scale up to much larger amounts of cameras on a network and video sources on a network, but it also gives you a higher quality when you're going multi-generational as well, where you're going from one version to another. So for us, it's actually horses for courses. There's a great use case for NDI HX, and now that we've got HX3 performing how we want it to do in a live production, awesome. But then also, if you've got a bigger, higher end production, or if you're wanting to work on video products that are in the cloud and things like that, that's where the full bandwidth NDI really shines on its own as well.
And you know, that big outdoor camera and the other camera, let's go back to that wide shot for a second. You know, when you're getting into devices like that, I'm thinking sports and live events. And
Yeah.
that's where, you know, the full NDI is really needed. And one of the things that I probed the guys earlier in the week from NDI and kind of got a inkling that I'm onto something, which is I think we need high frame rates if we're really going to get NDI going in sports. And I think, you know, for that instant replay and the stuff like that, you know, 120, 240, things like that. And you're not going to get that with the compression of HX3 so fast. But with full NDI, I think if everyone focused on it, imagine if your outdoor camera can now do 120 or 240 frames. Now, all of a sudden, it can truly replace a cameraman in a sporting event.
I think so. Like the nature of NDI is we're not bound in the same way that we are with an SDI cable, where
Yep.
you've got a fixed amount of bandwidth. Once you're on a network, we can massage around what we need. But you are 100% right. With NDI HX, they're kind of defined by the chips that we use inside there and what they're able to do from a compression point of view. And they're really designed to work in what we call regular video frame rates,
Yep.
so 60 frames a second. But when you go to high bandwidth NDI, we can do whatever we like, right? And if you've got a camera like these guys with a really powerful camera head on top, you can do whatever you like. And like you say, sports broadcasting, I think we're seeing a lot of really interesting workflows that are coming out just actually quite recently with NDI. So we're seeing a lot of uptake in the sports kind of tier one, but also tier two, and even college sports as well. So I think that's a really interesting space to watch. So I'm glad you mentioned that, actually.
And I think with both those new cameras, we're going to get into it more, you're really opening up BirdDog to be at that premier level that, you know, there's some big Japanese consumer electronics companies that now kind of
Might have heard of a
dominate
couple,
that
yeah.
space. And I'm looking forward to you guys giving them a little bit of a bloody nose and showing them how you guys can do something smarter, faster, and better. So we're super excited about that.
Us Aussies don't mind jumping in and upsetting the apple cart here and there. I think the cool thing that we've done with these is made sure that these higher end cameras, the big guys, can fit into larger productions. We're not trying to make a little walled garden of our own
Yep.
brand. We want these cameras to fit in perfectly. You know, if you've got a studio camera that might have come from those Japanese consumer brands, wouldn't it be cool if you just press a button on the camera to make sure that our BirdDog one matches the overall look of your show? And we've built that in. So we want to make sure these things really shine in every way. But yes, some of the features we got in there are pretty hard to kind of have other people pivot and put in. So we're pretty excited about what we've managed to pack into these products.
So while we're on these puppies, let's go into them. I'm going to skip a little ahead. Let's talk about the outdoor camera and the XL, both together. Pick how you want to talk about them, where they fit, because we've kind of opened that door. But then after you discuss those two, I want to jump back to HX3 and some of the things you guys have done that's more for the influencer, independent videographer person with a smaller, less elaborate setup, because you guys have really done something really with it, which I think is kind of amazing. You've gone way up to the broadcast event, live event space. And by live event, I mean doing a football game, doing a concert. It's not necessarily on broadcast network, but that level of stuff. But you've also done such a great job really catering to that person on a budget who needs a flexible workflow to produce a show that's growing from basically was produced, a podcast that they were videotaping on their phone that they're going to try to take to the next level. So let's jump into the two big cameras first because I just love them. So take it full screen and take it away, Dan. Pick whichever one you want to start with, but we're going to get to both of them.
Awesome. Thank you, Gary. Look, I'm glad you noticed that, and we'll get into the whole portfolio of products that we've built, but they're all really deliberate. But getting on to the big guys, I'm going to start with the outdoor camera. So this is called the O4. What we've done there is really take a look at how people want to use a camera that's network connected, but can be used anywhere. But actually one important point is that this camera, the O4, has got 12G SDI, and it's even got a fiber optic connector as well. So this can work in any workflow. It's not limited in any way to being NDI. But the thing we've done here is really take on what's important. When you're looking at an outdoor camera, you're generally going to have a fairly challenging, or at times have a challenging framing that you've got. There might be some bright areas of a baseball pitch, and then some shadows that are being cut by the grandstand. That can be really hard for cameras.
And it changes over the course of the day, right? What looks good in the morning, in the late afternoon, not so good, and vice versa.
Exactly. So we put in this guy a large sensor. It's a 1/1.8 sensor. So it's kind of the step up from what you'd normally see in an outdoor camera, which means you've got bigger pixels, which can handle that dynamic range a lot better. But we've also built in all of the stuff that kind of BirdDog, I like to think we've become famous for. Things like our color matrix.
Yep.
We've got gamma control. We've even got HDR where we can do bracketing, almost like what you do on your phone, where it'll expose twice on the frame for the shadows and then for the highlights to bring them all in to make them look a whole lot more natural. So we've got a huge amount of control in there. The other thing this has got, which is quite unique, is it's got AI tracking as well. So you can use this as a sports camera where you're looking at the whole field. You can zoom in and watch what the game's going on. But let's say you might have some presentations that are happening, or mid-match you might have a concert that goes on. You can put the camera into auto tracking mode, and it's just going to follow around who the presenter is. From an outdoor camera, that's something pretty unique. Typically, these guys, if you look at outdoor cameras, are more sort of manually operated. Yep. This thing's designed to be worked in with a really modern workflow. And our keyboard controller that we have allows you to turn on and off AI tracking. We've even got a cool new feature that's coming in the next version, which is just about to hit, which is trace movements as well. So you can record movements and then play them back, even in the outdoor camera here.
Oh,
you might see at the top here, there's actually two lenses, which can be a bit confusing. Is it two cameras? The answer is no. We've got the large lens at the bottom, which is 30 times optical in 4K, but it can also go 60 times optical in HD. So it's a really long lens. The one at the top here, though, is our IR laser emitter. This will light up in complete darkness up to 500 meters or 500 yards away. So when you're using that 60 times optical zoom, even in pitch black, this camera will actually pick up what's going on. So not only is it great for productions and things, but if you're wanting to see what's happening a long way away, or if you need to get some light into an area that doesn't have any light at all, this camera is going to give you that as well.
Well, Dan, we've got a couple of integrators in the sports who work with really high-end sports. They've already contacted you through us to get demo units for evaluations and stuff like that. I just want to reach out right now that anyone watching this show who thinks they've got an application for outdoor high-end sports, give us a call and we'll get you in line. There's not going to be a lot of these in the U.S. because they're big and they're expensive, but we're going to try to work with Dan and the team to make sure they get to the right people who have the right opportunity. Absolutely. So let us know the opportunity you're working on and where it fits in, and we'll bunch you. Listen, if all of a sudden it's NHL wants to put them in for the outdoor stadiums for the games in the snow, we're going to bump you to the head. Why? Because I'm a big hockey fan. But in general, we're looking at opportunities too. But just where that's going. So very excited about that camera. Now, you mentioned fiber. Talk to me about that. What made you put fiber in it?
Well, see, the interesting thing is with an outdoor camera, you want to put it up on the top of a stadium, or you want to put it a long way back, or typically it's not that easy to put a camera right up front or right next to your vision switcher. So with fiber, you can run this a mile, you can run it 10 miles, you can run it as far as you like. But the important thing is that you can run a cable the whole way to the camera.
And
you don't have to go through network switches. Right? That's right. And we've got the other thing that's really cool. We've spent quite a bit of time just sort of thinking about how we can make this easier. a lot of outdoor cameras, you need to have a junction box where you join up all your cables and everything.
Yep.
We've got this great cabling system where you can actually put a cable that's already pre-terminated through the weatherproof connector and just plug it straight in. So you can just order a 300-yard fiber cable that's already pre-terminated. You can plug it in inside the camera and have it completely weatherproof without any tails, without any junction boxes, and just have that thing ready to go.
Dan, I love how you guys are always thinking about what the users are going to want. One of the reasons is because you listen to your users and you listen to what people want, which is kind of what brought you into the other big guy on the other side of you, because that was something that, I got to admire you guys. That's a big jump in going into a much bigger, I don't mean bigger size, I mean bigger space, like a higher end space. And, I really admire you guys for doing that. I think you're going to do great with it. I think it's going to be a killer product. But talk about how you ended up with the XL, because that's a big jump for you boys.
It is absolutely. So this is a big lift for us, but it's built on kind of all of the learnings we've had along the way. And I guess the lucky thing for us is, as we mentioned right at the start, we've been building products and we've been sort of at home with NDI and IP workflows for the last 10 years. And this guy, the XL, really is kind of the best of the best of what we've learned. As you mentioned, we talk to our customers and get a feel for what they want in terms of a product. And if you're looking at PTZ cameras, there's probably three things that people really want at a high-end product. One is obviously the image quality. You want to have a really high-quality image. So that's, you might sort of tell by the size of this lens on the front, this guy's got some credentials there. This is a 4/3 sensor. So this is the kind of lens that you'd normally see, or sorry, the kind of sensor you'd normally see in a professional kind of photography camera. So it's really large, which gets a lot of light and a lot of dynamic range in there. But we've bolted on the front a 20 times optical zoom, which is really hard to do for a big sensor in a relatively compact size.
Yep.
So that's step one, image quality. Step two is what it's based on. So this is the robotics of it as well. You want to be able to move these cameras on air. So if you've got talent that's shifting around, or if you want to have a bit of dynamic movement, you want to have really fine control. And that's something where a lot of PTZs fall down. And we've been doing a bunch of work, which you see in a lot of our products actually, but we've taken it to the next level with XL as well. So really smooth on-air movements is something really important. Yep. So they're kind of the two things that we really wanted to put in there. The third one is connectivity. We mentioned fiber before. I won't turn this thing around, but it has all the connectors. So if you wanted to work in a NDI workflow, of course, we've got a regular network connection, which is PoE, or power over Ethernet. So one cable does the whole lot. It gives you power, audio, video control, and all that kind of stuff. So it's fantastic. We've also got two fiber connectors on this guy. So if you wanted to run it as a IP-based connection, so a network connection, we've got a fiber optic port for that. So you can run this camera in an event space and run a fiber optic cable, a tiny little fiber optic cable back to your network switch, which could be as far as you like away. So really easy to connect up. But we've also got a 12G SDI fiber as well. So if you're using a more traditional workflow with a vision switcher that's a SDI switcher, we can take this directly out with 12G SDI on the fiber connector and run it in the same way. So we're not just making an NDI camera here, we're making a studio camera that's robotic, and you can use it with any kind of vision switcher you like. Adding to that, we've got the high-end audio connectors. So it's got phantom power XLR connections. You can actually mount, it's got a cold shoe mount on the side, so you can mount a shotgun mic directly to the camera as well, which is pretty cool.
You really thought
one of the
I say you really thought of everything. And one of the things that I think that I always like to remind people, when you get these bigger sensors, that means better in poor lighting situations. And let's face it, when you're doing a live event, which is what that camera is designed for, sometimes the lighting you get is spectacular, and sometimes the lighting you get for that camera is a lot less than spectacular, right?
Yeah. And the other thing, talking about the lighting and conditions with this, it's also got an optical low pass filter, or OLPF. So this is great for using it with video walls as well. So if you have this camera pointing at a stage which has got video walls behind it, you don't get that moire effect, which can be really distracting with a lot of other cameras. So it's
that's really important for. I know a lot of the houses of worship now will have the preacher standing in front of a big video wall with all kinds of, maybe it's him, maybe it's other stuff that's going on there. So we're seeing more and more people not in front of a green screen, but in front of a video wall. So that's an important feature to talk about. And I think my recommendation to you is even though it's NDI November, we got to bump that up a little bit higher on the list of bullets, because There's a lot
I
of
think
people
so, yeah.
searching for that. There's a very small world of cameras that really accomplish what you're talking about. So I think you're going to open up some opportunities for you. I want to spin back to what we said we were going to talk about a little bit. Now let's get some sushi. Let's talk about the Maki, because
Alrighty, the
I
Maki.
really love what you guys have done on the lower end. And you've taken the HX3, you've jumped back into Wi-Fi with it, which I commend you on, because if you remember the early days when we first had NDI, we had NDI Sparks that were wireless, and
Yeah,
it turned out that it wasn't the Sparks that were the problem, but Wi-Fi itself wasn't really
exactly, yeah.
able to handle all those packets consistently. But with the Wi-Fi 6 and stuff that's out there now, we can really get there. So talk to me about how you've really brought this. I don't want to say consumer. I want to say it's for like more influencer, YouTuber,
Exactly, yeah.
individual, smaller production shows that are realizing, hey, if I go multi-camera, I'm going to get a better show. If I'm doing a podcast, having 2 cameras or 3 cameras just gives you a quality level. It takes you up to the next level. And I love how you've got and you got it right in front of you, that little, the Maki Live board,
Yep.
because we used to sell a product that we talked to you a lot about called the Sling Studio. It was before really even NDI got popular, but there's a hole in the market for just an easy to use, set it up, run and gun kind of switching device. And the fact that you're doing NDI and Wi-Fi over NDI if you need it just gives you so much flexibility to create whatever you need for your own little individual cast, whether it's a big show or a little show. And I
Absolutely.
want you to take a little time and talk about those also, because I think it's important.
Sure, and it is for us as well. Like we've spoken about the high-end products, but actually what we've got is a great deal of learnings that we got in these high-end products that we want to bring to everybody that's doing production. And you hit the nail on the head. It's these influencers, people that are actually wanting to up their game from being shot on an iPhone, or in a lot of cases where you're doing videos that are pre-recorded, you have to do a lot of work in post-production to make the video look engaging. But if you're working in live, which is what a lot of people are increasingly wanting to do, to be able to get some dynamic movement, to be able to make the images look really great and have control over it, is something that's really hard to do on a single phone. Where if you have our Maki setup, so we've got this is called the Maki Studio or Maki Control Surface. This pairs with an iPad, and then we've got our tiny little Maki cameras. And you mentioned let's get some sushi. The name of Maki is actually the Maki Rolls. It's about the same size as a sushi roll, but these guys are 4K cameras that are Wi-Fi, as you mentioned, and they're working with NDI HX3, so super low latency, really high quality. But now that we've got Wi-Fi that can really accommodate that, that's when we stepped in and decided it's time to really make this all happen. So if you're wanting to do a show, you can literally turn up with your backpack with an iPad with 3 cameras that come in a neat little case. You turn them on, everything's battery powered, everything's ready to go, and you can stream live, cut to different angles, regardless of what kind of content you're creating. And it makes it really high quality, super easy to use, and you can just get the angles that you like and make your show properly engaging rather than just looking like you've got a camera pointing at someone talking.
And you talked about something that we've been doing with our shows forever, but it's really catching on now. And I think the influencers who are jumping, this is what Mackie are realizing, is you shoot it live with multi cameras, but then you
Yeah,
edit from the different shots to create your social media 30-second, 1-minute clip. And when
exactly.
you've
Yeah,
got different angles, it becomes much more engaging, especially when you only have 30 or 60 seconds to make an impact. So that
totally.
whole way of shooting, of going live to do a little post for promoting and stuff, is a really nice workflow, and it works really well. And the guys who are tapping into it are seeing their engagement and their views and everything going up. So if you're an
It's really
influencer or a
important that
podcaster looking to get more likes, increasing the quality, the production quality of your shows is important. Not as important as your content, but when you put great content together with production quality, you can take your show to the next level.
totally, and I think it's almost with if you've only got one of those things, you're not going to win out. Like you need the quality of the content needs to be high in terms of the image quality, but the production quality needs to be high to get people to continue watching. If you don't have multiple angles to keep engagement or to add focus, if you don't have the ability to kind of make something look like television to make people want to watch it, it just becomes like you're looking at a webcam and you lose engagement at that point. And that's really where the Maki solution with our Maki cameras and also the Maki Studio switcher with your iPad allows you to make a show out of it rather than just having a live stream. And I think that's the difference.
So NDI November, we talked about the cameras. Let's go full circle again. You guys started with an encoder. You still got
Yep.
a line of encoders. You got the BD Play decoder, which is a smash hit product. I mean, hundreds of them get sold every month, I think. You know, it's the go-to decoder in the industry. And then you're also relaunching Connect a little bit, you know, with some new features and stuff. So let's take that whole bunch of stuff and
Yeah,
let our audience know what you got going on there.
let's bundle all that up together. So converters, like you say, is where we started, and there's still an absolute place for converters inside the NDI ecosystem, but also just in general inside video production. Those are, you know, at some point you need to distribute your video, and that's where Play works really well. It's a decoder where you can send it, plug a decoder behind every screen, and Play will put whatever content you're creating onto every screen in your building. But at the same time, the encoder side of things, you've got a whole bunch of different sources that you want to bring into your production. Not everything's a camera. So those converters give you a really great deal of flexibility. One of the cool things we do with our converter lineup is the encoders all work as a decoder at the same time as well. So you can actually do multiple channels out of a single converter box,
Yep.
which is really cool. What we're now doing, and you mentioned Connect. Connect is kind of my pet project in a lot of ways. I've loved this product since we had the idea. And what I'm really excited to see is where we're kind of getting to with Connect now. To back up a little bit and explain what it is, Connect, the name kind of gives a bit away. NDI is fantastic for working inside a network. So if you've got a local network or a campus network, you can get video to every screen, to every location. And it's a complete game changer compared to SDI or baseband workflows. What Connect does is then take that and grab you all of those bundles of NDI connections that you have around the world and make them all seamlessly connect to each other. The big thing here is that you're able to work within a web page and really easily get video from one location and put it to another place. But not just video, you can make that camera, you can make that video feed behave as if it was next door to you. You get all of the tally indicators, so it lights up green or red when it's live. You get full control over your cameras, so you can move them around, you can shade them. You can have one of our PTZ controllers in a completely different location with a multi-view on it, and you can shade your cameras remotely through Connect. You don't need to have everything in the one place. It just makes this convenience of your products can be literally anywhere. And the two exciting things that are happening with Connect. One is that we've now made it free, and that means that anyone can use BirdDog Connect to do any kind of remote interaction. And that can be remote production, where you have cameras in one location and your video switching somewhere else. But it could also be just to publish a camera to the web page so you can see a camera live and interact with it. We also work with post-production and a bunch of other workflows as well. But Connect literally does any type of connection work that you can think of where you need video, audio, or control anywhere on the planet on any device. So free is good. The next thing that's really exciting is we're building it into the products. And that means that any one of the BirdDog cameras and X series cameras and above, with the new firmware update that's just about to hit, will be able to work directly with Connect. You don't need to have a computer in your remote location. You just turn on the camera and give it internet connection, and you can access that remotely.
So let
Keep
me
in
get
mind
this
that's
straight.
free.
I can get one of your cameras. I can connect up in it with the firmware. I can
Yep.
set it up in my studio, ship that camera across the country to some guy in San Francisco, and as long as he's got an internet connection, I can bring him into my show. No special hardware needed.
You literally you post the camera to the person at the other end and say, plug it in, point it in the general direction, we've got it from there. We can do all of the shading, we can do all of the color controls, exposure, framing up the shot, recalling presets, and of course all the video and audio come through there as well. You don't need a computer, you don't need to set it up at all. It's it can be ready to go, literally turn on the camera. And
so we've got full NDI, we've got NDI HX, and now you're making NDI easy. And I love that.
Correct.
Because the
Yeah.
easier we can make it, the more people will use it. And I think, you know, this is our 6th annual, correct, guys? I think I said 15 different shows already. 6th annual NDI November. And I think one of the things that's really blown me away is how usability and user interfaces and ease of use and setup and discoverability have become such a big thing. And I think that speaks to just how big NDI has gotten so fast. And 6 years is like a lifetime in terms of technology, but
Totally.
it's really done great. And I think that you're focusing on those key areas of connectivity, discoverability, usability. You guys are obviously still in sync with the NDI mothership, and it's great to see that. So Dan, I want to thank you for being on the show. I want to ask you before we wrap up though, without getting fired by the guy, oh wait, that's you, you can't fire yourself. Tell us what's coming new What's in the plan? What's in the roadmap for BirdDog and NDI?
Oh, so we've been pretty busy. I'm not sure how many people have been following, but over the last 12 months, a fun stat is every 6 weeks we've released a new product. Now, at
Awesome.
some point, I kind of a whole company needs to take a breath from the hardware side of things, and you can see behind me we've got a great lineup of
Yep.
products. So next year, and what's coming in the short term is all about getting the most out of these things. And I think one thing I like to think we're famous for at BirdDog is adding more features to existing products. We don't
Yep.
want people to have to go out and buy the 2026 model to get the new feature. We'll give that to you as part of the platform that you already have. So for us, there's some really exciting things. I already gave away a little bit in terms of that
Yep.
connectivity, so building in Connect into these products. But really for us, there's a lot of things that are happening on that workflow and usability side of things. We're unifying a lot of how these cameras work, so you can mix between all the different models and make that a whole lot easier. We've got some great new things coming on our controller side of things. So the keyboard controller, which has been a runaway success as well, is getting some really cool new features to make productions a whole lot smoother and a lot more automated. So keep an eye out for multi-camera kind of automation there. And of course, it wouldn't be a roadmap discussion without something around AI. And AI has kind of become standard, and people sort of reconcile AI in the camera sense of being auto tracking. But that's only one place that you can put AI. And I'm going to do a bit of a teaser in that in terms of we see in a lot of what we've done, like we've been building in these features about remote connectivity, AI can really play a lot of roles in that and remote switching and things as well. So for us, it's going to be connectivity, it's going to be convenience in terms of control and how that works, and obviously some AI side of things sprinkled in there as well. We might have a
Awesome.
few little exciting hardware products coming out, but from a camera perspective, I think we've got pretty much all the bases covered here. So next year is going to be an exciting one with a lot of things really joining up, and I think we'll have some aha moments with a lot of people when they see that all happening.
And Dan, I got to tell you, for NDI November, we had a bunch of guests, but let's bring this shot up full screen again. I think you've got the best set going of anyone. The stuff it's like an interior designer set the whole thing up. It looks great. I love the big new
Thank
boys
you.
on the end. I love the on-air, everything you've got going there. You look great. Thank you for being on the show.
Always.
Always wonderful. I know you're coming in from Australia, so it might be 4 in the afternoon. It might be the afternoon for me, but it's the middle of the morning for you. So thank you so much for that. And anytime I have a guest on, I always like to give them a last word on whatever they've got. So, Dan, the floor is yours.
Thanks very much. Honestly, NDI November is one of the most exciting parts of my calendar. And I think this year, what's really been exciting is seeing how NDI is really shaping into many more workflows. Where it started out being just for live production, what we're seeing is so many other places that it can go. And so for me, I'm really excited about the high end kind of connectivity that we're seeing and where products are going in at the really high end of use cases, but also how it's starting to get into influencer spaces and things as well. NDI is really becoming a commodity or a network standard rather than an option for people to use. So I'm really excited about what NDI November 2026 is going to have. And stay tuned for our announcements, I guess, every 6 weeks or so from here on in.
I think at some point you should take a vacation. So one of the announcements could be 12 weeks apart. But I love your ambition. Love what you guys are doing. BirdDog has been with NDI since the beginning, continues to push the envelope. Dan, thank you so much for being on the show. NDI November, I think we still got a few more shows left, guys, 2 more shows. So want to thank everyone who tuned in. And once again, we're going to do some prizes and we got some giveaways. And also remember, all this NDI content will be available on our websites later afterwards. Thank everyone who was in the room and watching the show. And Dan, have a great one. We'll see you soon.
See you soon. Thanks.